Tim, I said, Tim, look, we've treated you really good. We put up with all the plants that you built in China for years. Now you got to build us. We're not interested in you building in India. Apple will not go out of India.
And Apple is all set to move the assembly of all iPhones sold in the United States to India by as early as next year.
Picture a world where your iPhone, Apple's crown jewel, isn't made in China but in India, a nation racing to become the new tech manufacturing king. Sounds like a win, right? Apple's betting big, shifting US-bound iPhone production to India by 2026, pumping out $22 billion worth of phones in 2025 alone. It's a seismic move to dodge Trump's crushing 145% tariffs on Chinese imports, turning India into a global export hub. But here's the catch. This shift could send iPhone prices skyrocketing. Some say to $2,300 for a Pro Max in the US, or 2 lakh rupees in India. Behind it, a tangled web of trade wars, supply chain chaos, and a scandalous truth. India's not ready to replace China, and consumers might pay the price. Is Apple's India gamble a masterstroke or a recipe for sticker shock? Welcome to Biz Breakdowns. Let's unpack the drama. Apple's China story was a fairy tale. Decades of cheap labor, vast factories, and 90% of iPhones assembled in Zhengzhou's iPhone City. But in 2025, it's a liability. Trump's tariffs, announced April 2nd, slap a 54% levy on Chinese goods, with smartphones under a 90-day reprieve that's set to expire. Apple's stock tanked 8% in a day, its worst drop since 2020, as investors feared an $800 billion market cap hit. CEO Tim Cook, the supply chain wizard, saw the writing on the wall. India, with its 1.4 billion people, and Modi's Make in India push was the answer. Since 2017, Apple's assembled iPhones in India, starting with the iPhone SE. By 2025, it produces 1 in 5 iPhones globally, $22 billion worth, up 60% from 2024, mostly at Foxconn and Tata plants in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. Foxconn's planning a massive Uttar Pradesh facility, and Tata's new 250-acre Soar plant kicks off iPhone 17 production this year. Cook bragged on May 1st to CNBC, over half of US iPhone sales come from India. That's 40 million units exported, with plans to hit 85 million by 2026 to meet US demand. Sounds like a slam dunk, but it's a high-stakes gamble. India is a manufacturing rookie compared to China's juggernaut. It assembles iPhones, not makes them. 90% of components, like TSMC's A18 chips, still come from Taiwan or China. India's customs duties, 22%, and GST, 18%, jack up costs and its labor pool, while skilled lacks China's scale. Tim Cook admitted in 2017, in the US, you couldn't fill a room with tooling engineers. In China, you'd fill football fields. Analyst Craig Moffett of Moffett-Nathanson calls the shift unrealistic, arguing India can't dodge tariffs entirely since components face China's 54% levy. Wedbush's Dan Ives warns an all-American iPhone would cost $3,500, and India's no silver bullet. To hit US demand, India must double output to 85 million units, straining factories, ports, and workers. A senior Indian official told the Economic Times, if tariffs stick, manufacturers might eye Brazil or the UAE with 10% rates over India's 26%. Now the price question, will iPhones soar? Wall Street's split. Rosenblatt Securities predicts a 30 to 40% US hike if Apple passes on tariff costs. A $799 iPhone 16 could hit $1,500. A $1,599 Pro Max, $2,300. In India, with GST and duties, that's 2 lakh rupees for a premium model. Apple's SEC filing hints at inevitable hikes, despite rushing 600 tons of Indian-made iPhones to the US in March to beat tariffs. But others, like Apple Insider, argue India's ramp-up ensures steadier prices by avoiding China's 54% hit. India's iPhone 16 starts at 79,900 rupees, unchanged since 2020's iPhone 12, defying 6% annual inflation, partly due to local assembly and duty cuts in 2024. Posts from an Indian tech guide celebrate Apple's $40 billion India output in fiscal year 26, but Baptiste Vicini warns of double prices if tariffs bite. Bloomberg notes Apple's $8 billion India sales in 2024, with iPhones driving 50%, showing local production hasn't slashed prices yet. Components and taxes keep costs high. The scandal? Apple's playing a dangerous game. Its China exit risks Beijing's wrath. China limits critical minerals and could throttle component exports. Geopolitical tensions between India and China, plus India's creaky infrastructure, threaten delays. The IMF's Kristalina Georgieva warns tariffs could spark global sluggish growth, hitting Apple's sales as consumers balk at $2,000 phones. India's government is all in, dishing out $2.7 billion in incentives, but the Indian Cellular and Electronics Association flags rivals like Saudi Arabia, with lower 10% tariffs luring manufacturers. Apple's pushing for a U.S. trade deal, lobbying with Microsoft and Google, but Trump's team demands steep concessions. And consumers? They're caught in the crossfire. If Apple absorbs costs, margins shrink. If it raises prices, sales tank. iPhone demand already dipped 2% in 2024. What's next? Apple's doubling down. Foxconn aims for 30 million units in 2025, and Tata's Hoser plant targets Pro models. India's pitching a bilateral trade deal by July to cut its 26% tariff. But Trump's unpredictable. Apple's also building R&D in Bengaluru, tapping India's engineers to reduce China reliance. But analysts like IDC's Navkinder Singh warn India's not there yet for end-to-end manufacturing. If tariffs ease or China retaliates, Apple could pivot to Vietnam, 46% tariff, or Mexico. For now, India's the least bad bet. In 2025, with $95.4 billion in Q2 revenue in a record device base, Apple's resilient, but a trade war could change that fast. So what's the verdict? Is Apple's India shift a bold leap or a costly misstep? Will iPhone prices soar, or can Cook keep them steady? Heroes of diversification or victims of trade chaos? You decide. If this dive into Apple's high-stakes gamble got your pulse racing, smash that like button and subscribe to Biz Breakdowns for more tales of ambition, scandal, and drama. Next up, another saga that'll shock you. Check the description for what's coming. See you in the next one.